Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from the Cape. I'm Will Robinson Smith. I'll be providing our commentary for the duration of our coverage tonight. We are broadcasting from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. I'm joined, as always, tonight by Stephen Young, who is running our graphics and technical things behind the scenes, and Adam Bernstein, who is out operating the cameras for us tonight. Fortunately, the rain has tapered off, so our cameras and Adam are not getting wet anymore, which is always good. In the center of your screen, you see Space Launch Complex 40, Slick 40 over at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. In the heart of it, SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket standing by to launch another mission tonight. On tap is called the Galaxy 37 mission, which we'll have much more on throughout the broadcast for the communications company Intelsat. It's launching a 5 metric ton satellite. T-minus 57 minutes and counting. If you'd like to support our coverage of the space program, we appreciate all of you that are joining us in the live chat here. If you can click the like button, share the stream, that's always appreciated. If you subscribe to the channel, of course, you'll get notifications when new videos are posted, and so you don't miss any of these live streams when we go live. Sharing the stream also helps more people find the coverage, which is great. And naturally, we can't do these broadcasts without you, so really appreciate the 880 folks who are joining us in the early part of the stream. Thanks to all of you for stopping by on a Wednesday, about to be Thursday. Of course, if you'd like to help improve and expand our coverage of the space program, we would love it if you can consider making a donation through the YouTube Super Chat feature. Love reading those Super Chat comments during the broadcast. And of course, you can also become a member of our YouTube channel. Membership grants you access to our special member-only videos, like the conversation that we had with Intelsat leading up to the launch tonight. Another perk of being a member tonight in particular, we have a distinct 4K view of the launch tonight that is available for our members. You can also get discounts in our online shop. T-minus 55 minutes, 34 seconds and counting. Less than 20 minutes away from the point at which the launch director will give their go for the start of propellant load for tonight's launch. SpaceX is running this count near the site where it refurbishes its Falcon 9 boosters, that site being Hangar X. Specifically, where they're operating is the MCC-X, or Mission Control Center X. SpaceX's launch team also gets support from their control rooms at the headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Launch director will conduct their go, no-go poll electronically. The chief engineer should have already conducted a technical poll. T-minus 53 minutes, 16 seconds and counting. Weather looking fairly decent for the launch tonight. T0 coming up at 12:15 a.m. Eastern, 04:15 UTC for our viewers around the world. At the moment, we have partly clear skies. There are some clouds in the area, some bigger clouds, but heading into tonight's launch opportunity, the 45th Weather Squadron put the odds of favorable weather at about 90%. Pretty darn good. With, of course, the clouds being the only potential weather concern. There was a little bit of rain, as I mentioned, that moved in through the area, but that has since rolled out. So rain is not a factor tonight. But should they need it, SpaceX does have a backup launch window that opens in the early morning hours of Friday, August 4th at the same time, 12:15 a.m. Weather for that backup slot is 85% favorable. T-minus 50 minutes, 43 seconds and counting. Want to take a look at where this mission falls in the overall launch landscape, both for SpaceX and here in Florida. Running down the mission stats, this will be the 6th flight of this particular Falcon 9 first stage booster, B-1077. We'll go over the missions it's flown a little bit later. This will be the 243rd Falcon 9 launch to date and the 49th on the year. For SpaceX, this is their 52nd orbital launch of 2023. It is the 136th SpaceX orbital launch from this particular pad, Pad 40 over at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. To date, it's the 191st overall orbital launch from Pad 40. And if all goes well, this will also be the 39th orbital launch from Cape Canaveral in 2023. Most of those were SpaceX, with the exception of the Delta IV Heavy from United Launch Alliance, as well as a launch from Relativity, their maiden launch of the Terran 1 rocket. And you'll notice we've taken down the countdown clock temporarily as SpaceX has updated the T0 for tonight's mission. Now targeting 12:45 a.m. Eastern. It's 04:45 UTC. SpaceX does have a 2-hour launch window for this mission. So as long as the fueling process has not gotten underway, they can continue to shuffle back as needed. We'll get the countdown clock back up momentarily as we continue to move forward, with hopefully a launch in an hour and 17 minutes, 42 seconds and counting. T-minus 1 hour, 14 minutes, 53 seconds and counting. Just taking a peek into the live chat. Did happen to notice Andrew Javor did comment on the new T0, so kudos on your eagle eye on Twitter, or now X, Andrew. Part of the good thing about doing these missions with everyone live is we have a lively live chat, and sometimes they're spotting Twitter or refreshing just a little bit faster than we can, and so extra set of eyes is always helpful in times like these. As we do have a little bit of time now, let's take that time and go over the countdown timeline, shall we, as we await the launch of the Galaxy 37 mission for Intelsat. T-minus 38 minutes, the SpaceX launch director will give the results of the go, no-go poll. If that go is given, the propellant load will start at T-minus 35 minutes. Kerosene will be loaded onto the first and second stages simultaneously, otherwise known as RP1. At the same time, liquid oxygen will also start being pumped aboard the first stage of the Falcon 9 rocket. T-minus 16 minutes. Liquid oxygen will start flowing into the second stage, the upper stage there. Prior to this, we'll see the so-called big vent from the strong back at the launch pad as those feed lines are chilled. T-minus 7 minutes, the Falcon 9 will begin the first stage Merlin 1D engine chill. It's important. It involves a small amount of liquid oxygen going into the plumbing and turbo pumps. It protects the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. Also, about 6 minutes prior to launch, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. Then at T-minus 4 minutes and 30 seconds, we'll see the strong back begin to retract from the Falcon 9 rocket. You see it there just off to the right in the live image on the right-hand side of your screen. It'll recline to an angle of about 1.5 degrees, just a slight lean back from the Falcon 9, and it remains in that position until liftoff. At that point, the strong back will pull back much more quickly to clear the way for the vertical climb of the Falcon 9 as it leaps off the pad. Just about 2 minutes, the liquid oxygen loading should be complete. At this point, the Falcon 9 will be fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. Then the final 60 seconds, control the countdown will be handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9 onboard flight computers. The propellant tanks will be brought up to flight pressure. And then the SpaceX launch director will give their go for liftoff. The engine ignition command will be issued at T-minus 3 seconds. And then, of course, if all 9 engines are healthy, they'll ignite. The flight computer will give the command for the hold down clamps to release. The Falcon 9 will take to the skies at T0. Now currently targeting the new T0 of 12:45 a.m. of 4:45 UTC in T-minus 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 6 seconds and counting. T-minus 1 hour, 3 minutes, 55 seconds and counting. As the clock continues to move forward, want to talk a little bit about the mission that's going to be launching tonight, the satellite in question. For now, you're taking a look at the Galaxy 37 satellite. This image coming to us courtesy of Maxar. This is the 5-ton satellite that'll be launching on board the Falcon 9 in the early morning hours of Thursday, August 3rd. Right now, it's nestled inside those payload fairings at the top of the Falcon 9 rocket you see there in the live pictures on the right-hand side of your screen. Intelsat and Maxar have a long-standing relationship. Their partnership in making satellites goes back to the 1970s. Taking another look, here's what the satellite looks like as it is in preparation of being encapsulated inside the 2 payload fairings that you see there fully together on the right-hand side of your screen in the live picture. Left-hand side, that was obviously before that. Satellite Galaxy 37, also called Horizons 4. It's because part of the satellite's operations will be conducted by Intelsat's partner, the Japan-based company SBTV JAST. We are now at T-minus 1 hour and counting, down to the new T0 of 12:45 a.m. the morning of August 3rd. I'm Will Robinson Smith for Spaceflight Now. Want to welcome the more than 1,400 of you that are joining us this evening. For those of you who have just entered the live stream, welcome. Originally, the launch time was at 12:15 a.m. Eastern. SpaceX has adjusted that back to 12:45, back by 30 minutes. They do have a 2-hour launch window for the Galaxy 37 Horizons 4 mission, so as long as the fueling has not begun, if they need to shuffle that on back, they still have time and opportunity to do so. Just before we hit the T minus 60 minutes and counting mark, we were talking a little bit about the Galaxy 37 mission, and earlier today we had the chance to talk with Intelsat's Chief Technology Officer, Bruno Fremont, about the collaboration between their partners in Japan, SPTV JSAT, and Intelsat. Want to go to part of our conversation, talk a little bit about that collaboration.
We've been, the first to bring into space, commercial satellites, since 1965, and I think this is the launch number 160. So that's, obviously a very large number of satellites. Here, that fleet that we are refreshing in North America is a premier video neighborhood, as you said, for broadcasting. We reach out to 100 million customers that receive, broadcasting and television programs in the United States and beyond. So that's very important for us. I think more than 20 years ago, we also started a joint venture with our Japanese friend of JSAT, SPTV JSAT, and they are contributing. We have a joint venture mission on that spacecraft as well called Horizon 4. And about 20 years ago, we started something called Horizon 1, which was the first common venture together. And I think they are very excited as well to be able to contribute to that mission. So that's another exciting point for us. In the case of the Horizon venture, it came about because the Japanese wanted to invest in the American market, and we were willing to give them a place. They had also spectrum filings that were attractive to us. So I think we both parties found a win-win by collaborating and contributing us a bit of technical and commercial expertise, and they provided a bit of financing and also spectrum capabilities to the venture. So and we've been happy. They have an office in Washington D.C. and they're happy working with us on exploring the mission.
Andy mentioned the first collaboration with Horizons 1. That was a part of the Galaxy 13 satellite built by Boeing, launched back on October 1st in 2003. T-minus 56 minutes, 11 seconds and counting. T-minus 54 minutes, 22 seconds and counting. Was just chatting with Adam Bernstein a little bit about what the weather is like over at the pad, noting that there is a little bit of rain in the area. As you mentioned, those clouds are something that SpaceX and the 45th Weather Squadron are watching as an item tonight. The launch weather forecast was good, but of course, good is not perfect, and they do have a 2-hour launch window, so hopefully some of those thicker clouds will shuffle away and create an opening for SpaceX to be able to launch the Galaxy 37 Horizons 4 mission in just over 53 minutes from now. Now, assuming it does launch tonight, of course, a popular question that we get asked is, where is it going? Let's go ahead and take a look at the trajectory for tonight's mission. Of course, the Falcon 9 rocket tonight is going to be launching off Pad 40 over at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. It'll be flying in an easterly direction. And after MECO main engine cutoff, the first stage booster will separate from the upper stage and will land on the drone ship out in the Atlantic Ocean. Tonight, SpaceX is using the drone ship just to read the instructions. Upper stage will continue on with the Galaxy 37 satellite. The fairing halves will jettison just a bit downrange and will be scooped up by one of SpaceX's recovery vessels tonight. The honor belongs to Bob. Now, after launch with that second stage, I want to talk a little bit about where it's going to be going beyond there. T-minus 51 minutes, 43 seconds and counting. So ultimately, the Galaxy 37 satellite will be heading to geostationary orbit, circular geostationary orbit. This means that the satellite will orbit the Earth at the same pace of the Earth's rotation, so it will remain parked in its singular spot. After launch from Pad 40, which we showed you on the trajectory, the upper stage will take the Galaxy 37 satellite first to what's called a parking orbit. That'll be followed by the second burn of the upper stage, which is the injection to transfer orbit burn. Like I said, it will ultimately go to geostationary Earth orbit above the equator. Sometimes that can be achieved by doing what SpaceX did with the recent Falcon Heavy mission with the Jupiter 3 satellite, using a geostationary transfer orbit. But that is not what they are doing tonight. Tonight, SpaceX is going to be launching using what's called a supersynchronous transfer orbit. Essentially, it'll put the Galaxy 37 satellite above the geostationary altitude. At that point, it will perform a series of maneuvers using its apogee thrusters to increase the height of the perigee to a geostationary altitude. Then it has a couple of maneuvers to decrease the height of the apogee down to geo. That whole process, not quick, it takes about 3 weeks, according to Intelsat. At that point, the satellite will go through its series of on-orbit testing at the position of 148 degrees west. Then finally, the satellite will move down to its final location at 127 degrees west, which is just west of Seattle. Intelsat tells us that it expects Galaxy 37 to be in service in early Q4. It says right about October. T-minus 49 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. And within the last minute, we just got another update from SpaceX. They are now targeting 1 a.m. for the new T0 of the Galaxy 37 mission / Horizons 4. We'll be readjusting our countdown clock momentarily, and here we go. So we are now back to T-minus 1 hour, 1 minute, 57 seconds, and counting. Again, as a reminder, SpaceX does have a 2-hour launch window tonight as far as those opportunities go if they have not yet started fueling, which of course they have not at this point. We have seen some of those larger pesky clouds off the coast of Florida tonight, potentially something that SpaceX is hoping to wait out over the course of this 2-hour launch window. SpaceX knows that they are keeping an eye on the weather, that being the big watch item that unfortunately is out of all of our controls down here on Earth. I'm sure SpaceX would love the ability to move some clouds, but until such technology is figured out, they'll have to wait. Unfortunately, they have a 2-hour launch window to do so. T-minus 1 hour, 48 seconds and counting. T-minus 53 minutes, 55 seconds and counting to the current T0 of 1 o'clock in the morning of August 3rd, which we have now crossed over into here on the East Coast. It is 12:06 local time. New T0 is 0500 UTC for folks watching from around the world. We're talking about weather being a watch item for SpaceX, as noticed in their latest post on social media site formerly known as Twitter, now X. I want to show this photo. This is a long exposure on an iPhone from Adam, who's out in the field keeping an eye on our cameras there. Fortunately, the long exposure is able to give us a slightly better glimpse, especially with the full, nearly full moon, helping to backlight those clouds in the picture. Gives another vantage point that our video cameras don't quite capture, but you can see some of the clouds that are hanging around the area of Florida's Space Coast, making things a little tricky for SpaceX to find a pocket to be able to launch this Falcon 9 tonight. Not saying they won't, but they certainly have time, since this is a 2-hour launch window. Same goes for tomorrow night if they're not able to launch tonight. That window opens at 12:15 a.m. Eastern, morning of Thursday, August 4th. Of course, we're just about 8 minutes or so from the opening of the launch window tonight. First hour of opportunity now behind SpaceX as they continue to watch the weather and decide when things may be clear enough to begin some of the big countdown events and give the go for the start of propellant load. That poll would take place at T-minus 38 minutes. Of course, we'll continue to keep an eye on that and let you know as we get closer to that milestone if SpaceX is pursuing the current T0 launch time tonight of 1 o'clock in the morning, or if that will be pushed off again. T-minus 49 minutes, 7 seconds and counting. We're just a little over 10 minutes away from SpaceX launch team taking that go, no-go poll for the start of propellant loading. Of course, we'll keep a close eye on that as SpaceX has shuffled the T0 time a couple of times tonight. We'll let you know as soon as that poll begins. But assuming that SpaceX is able to launch this Falcon 9 this morning, now officially, let's go ahead and take a look at what the launch timeline looks like once it leaves the pad. Of course, that T0 now targeting 1 o'clock for the liftoff of the Falcon 9 from pad 40. At T plus 1 minute 14 seconds, the Falcon 9 will experience the maximum dynamic pressure on the vehicle, known as Max-Q. T plus 2 minutes 23 seconds is main engine cutoff, or MECO. It's when the 9 Merlin engines on the first stage will cut off. Followed shortly thereafter at T plus 2 minutes 36 seconds stage separation, where the first and second stages move apart. T plus 2 minutes 44 seconds is the second engine ignition, SES-1. That Merlin vacuum engine will fire up on its first burn to bring the Galaxy 37 to that parking orbit that we talked about a little bit earlier. At T plus 3 minutes 34 seconds, the payload fairings will jettison. Those 2 payload fairings that are at the top of the Falcon 9 rocket you see there in the live picture on the right-hand side of your screen. A little bit earlier, we showed you what the Galaxy 37 satellite looks like nestled in between. We may go back to that image in just a little bit. Show that to you one more time before we hit the point of liftoff tonight. T plus 6 minutes 23 seconds, the first stage entry burn begins. That burn will last for 22 seconds. The engine will cut off at T plus 6 minutes 45 seconds. Then at T plus 8 minutes 8 seconds, the second stage engine cutoff happens, SECO 1. T plus 8 minutes 26 seconds, the first stage landing burn starts. Shortly thereafter, T plus 8 minutes 30 seconds, the first stage will land on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. It's a little bit between milestones at this point. It's not till T plus 26 minutes 33 seconds that the Merlin vacuum engine will come to life once again. For SES-2, that burn will last for 57 seconds. Cutting off at T plus 27 minutes 30 seconds. And then finally, the moment that Intelsat is eagerly awaiting, T plus 32 minutes 31 seconds, the Galaxy 37 / Horizons 4 satellite will deploy from the Falcon 9 upper stage. Currently at T plus 45 minutes 19 seconds and counting. Looking over at the stream for a moment, want to thank the nearly 2,700 of you that have joined us for our live coverage tonight. If you're enjoying the coverage so far, if you hit the like button, that'd be very much appreciated, and share the stream. Helps more people discover our coverage, and of course, if you subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell, you'll be notified when all of our videos get posted to this channel. And again, for our members, you do have the benefit of those 4K views of the launch tonight. So really appreciate the support of all of our channel members. T minus 44 minutes, 27 seconds and counting.
Attention launch operators, the propellant load and launch go, no-go poll is open in step 57.70 of 1.160.
T-minus 42 minutes, 22 seconds and counting. Sure the call out that the poll for the start of propellant loading is now open. Should be hearing results of that poll in the next several minutes here. Of course, we'll keep an eye on that. That'll be a good indication of SpaceX's attempt to launch tonight. A positive update. The picture that we showed you just a little bit earlier of those clouds has started to improve. Want to take a look at a new image from Adam as some of those larger clouds are sliding off to the west away from the pad, which of course is good news for SpaceX and those of us who are hoping to see a launch tonight from pad 40. The weather seems to be clearing up and opening a pathway for a launch opportunity. SpaceX continues to target that T0 at 1 o'clock a.m. Eastern. And you can see the glow at the bottom left-hand corner of this image from Adam. Those are the bright lights that are surrounding the Falcon 9 rocket at pad 40. You can see on the right-hand side of your screen, those are the live pictures of our current live stream camera. You can see one of those lights just on the bottom right-hand corner of that box. So a little bit of contrast between with the long exposure and the brightness of a nearly full moon and a bright pad look like compared to the live stream images, as we are now just about 40 minutes from launch. Taking a look at the live chat here. See Rosie Wren, the queen of YouTube forever. Love the name. Has become a channel member at the pad leader level. Thank you so much for supporting our coverage. And Astro Joe, one of our moderators, chipping in with a $10 super chat. Really appreciate that, Astro Joe. Saying please hit that thumbs up. We're all here for a launch, but sometimes it doesn't work out. Hopes go for prop load. And that is certainly the call out that we are hoping to hear in the next couple of minutes here. Usually comes around T-minus 38 minutes. So it should just be very soon.
Attention launch operators, this is the launch director with abort instructions. For non-urgent no-go conditions, brief the CE or LD and they will approve aborting the countdown. For urgent issues affecting the safety of the operation, operators shall call hold, hold, hold on the countdown net. Launch control will abort the launch auto sequence immediately and proceed into the launch abort auto sequence. At T-minus 10 seconds, launch control will be hands-off and relying on automated abort criteria for the remainder of the count.
T-minus 38 minutes, 9 seconds and counting. Did hear the launch team go through the description for the abort procedure, which is standard about this time in the count. Typically, that's coupled with the results of the fueling go, no go poll. Did not explicitly hear that. But if the go has been given for the start of propellant loading, that would begin in about 2.5 minutes at T-minus 35 minutes. So we will stand by to see if there is a call out either for the start of propellant loading or a call out that propellant loading has begun. T-minus 35 minutes is when that fuel loading will begin on the first and second stages for the RP1 and the first stage for the liquid oxygen LOX.
Tanks are venting for propellant load.
And we hear that call that those tanks are venting for propellant load. Certainly a good sign. Did see just a little puff.
The launch auto sequence has started.
T-minus 34 minutes, 39 seconds and counting, and heard the call for the start of propellant load on the Falcon 9 rocket. So SpaceX is on track and committing to the launch attempt now with a T0 of 1 o'clock Eastern Time, 0500 UTC. So now that things are moving forward, let's go ahead and take a look back one more time at the launch countdown and talk about the sequence of where things go from here. Of course, we've already passed a couple of these top milestones where they've begun loading the propellant. So we'll skip down to T-minus 16 minutes. That's when the liquid oxygen will start flowing into the second stage of the rocket. Of course, before this, we will see so-called big vent from the strong back as the feed lines are chilled. At T-minus 7 minutes, the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines begins. That's when that liquid oxygen starts moving through the plumbing, creating a layer of protection from thermal shock and damage during the Falcon 9 startup sequence. At about 6 minutes before launch, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. T-minus 4 minutes, 30 seconds. That's when the strong back retract will begin as it starts to pull away from the Falcon 9 rocket, leaning back about 1.5 degrees, just a little bit. And it'll stay there until liftoff, at which point it will lean back much more rapidly before the Falcon 9 leaps off the pad. Liquid oxygen loading should be completed about T-minus 2 minutes. And then at T-minus 1 minute in the last 60 seconds, Control the countdowns handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9 onboard flight computers. The propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. The SpaceX launch director will give the final go for liftoff. Engine ignition command will be issued at T-minus 3 seconds. And then at that point, if everything is on track, all systems are healthy, the flight computer will release the hold down clamps and we will have a launch. T-minus 31 minutes, 55 seconds in, counting. T-minus 31 minutes and counting. As the fueling continues, you can start to see a little bit of vapor forming at the base of the first stage of this Falcon 9 rocket. A little bit of a tighter view there. If you see the two spotlights that are pointing at the Falcon 9 in the center of your screen, just a little bit above where those lights are, if you sort of bring your eyes right to where the rocket is, you can see some of those vapors form on the outside of the rocket. T-minus 28 minutes, 47 seconds and counting. Things continue to proceed well with the fueling process for the Falcon 9 rocket. And as we are watching the countdown continue to tick on, got a little over 3,000 of you joining us live tonight. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Let's talk now about the launch vehicle that is the star of the show, the Falcon 9, and all the pieces and parts that make it do what it does. Falcon 9, of course, stands 70 meters or 229 feet tall. And it has a diameter of 3.66 meters or about 12 feet. The base of the rocket, where you can still see some of that venting happening, some of those vapors forming near the base of the rocket. This is the first stage, bottom 2/3. This particular first stage has flown 5 times so far in its life. It's going for its 6th. This is tail number B1077. We'll have a little bit more on its flight history in just a moment. At the base of the rocket are 9 Merlin engines, which burn rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen to produce 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Around the engine compartment are the black carbon fiber landing legs. See them there. Of course, this first stage will land on the drone ship. Just read the instructions shortly after launch tonight, or this morning, I should say. It'll be brought back to Port Canaveral, where it is offloaded, refurbished, and prepared for an upcoming flight. SpaceX's 2 flight leaders in its Falcon 9 first stage fleet, B1058 and B1060, both have 16 flights under their belt. SpaceX has announced plans to certify its first stage boosters up to 20 missions. It's doing so with the launch of its own payloads, that being the Starlink satellites, payload we see flying most often here from the Space Coast. Moving right up the rocket here, above the first stage is the inner stage. This is a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core surrounded by carbon fiber. In that image on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the deployable hypersonic grid fins. These are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the Falcon 9 as it falls through the atmosphere. Think of it like a very complex dart. At the top of the inner stage are 3 mechanical latches that attach to the second stage. At first stage main engine cutoff, MECO. The high-pressure helium is used to release those latches, and 4 pneumatic pushers ensure that it is a clean separation. Second stage engine nozzle is safely housed inside the inner stage adapter until stage separation occurs. Speaking of that second stage, upper stage of the Falcon 9, powered by just a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine, or MVAC engine. It's equipped as you see in the image on the right-hand side of your screen. That large nozzle is optimized for burns in the vacuum of space. Produces more than 200,000 pounds of thrust. It'll be fired twice on today's flight, as the upper stage goes to supersynchronous orbit. The MVAC engine burns the same propellant mix, kerosene RP1 and the liquid oxygen, same as the first stage. Following the deployment of the Galaxy 37 Horizons 4 mission satellite, it will ignite a third time. That will be the deorbit burn to drive that upper stage back into the atmosphere. Will burn up, helping to eliminate the risk of any unnecessary. Speaking a little out of turn, as Stephen reminded me, this mission actually a little bit different than typical launches with the Falcon 9 with the upper stage, where it would normally do that third burn to deorbit. This particular mission requires a little bit of extra oomph. SpaceX is going to be performing what's called the minimum residual shutdown, which essentially is a burn of the upper stage when it starts up again, and it will go to nearly the point of it running out of propellant. That'll help it get in the supersynchronous transfer orbit. Just one of the options that SpaceX has available to it with its Falcon family of rockets. Last but not least, on the Falcon 9 are those payload fairings sitting there at the very top of the stack. Nestled inside is the Galaxy 37 satellite. The payload fairings made of a carbon composite material. It's 13.1 meters or 43 feet tall and 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. 2 halves of the payload fairing will be recovered by the recovery ship Bob tonight. They gently splash down using parachutes. Now at T-minus 22 minutes, some change and counting.
Stage 2 RP1 load complete.
T-minus 19 minutes, 55 seconds and counting, and we see the start of the big vent as stage 2 RP1 loading has been complete. We heard that call out, so things continue to proceed well with the fueling of the Falcon 9 rocket. Still on track for a T0 liftoff at 1 o'clock Eastern time, as we have about 3,500 of you now joining us for live coverage. Appreciate you stopping in, either very early for some, on the later side for others. But regardless, appreciate you being with us on a Friday morning local time. T-minus 17 minutes, 51 seconds and counting, as we prepare for the launch of the Galaxy 37 Horizons 4 satellite. Earlier today, we also had a chance to talk to another member of Intelsat leadership, the Senior Vice President of Space Systems, to learn a little bit more about the satellite that's launching in the early Thursday morning hours.
Galaxy 37 Horizons 4 will weigh about 5 metric ton at launch. It's got 4 large deployable reflectors. It has a C-band mission and a Ku-band mission. The C-band mission is referred to as the Galaxy 37 mission. The Ku-band mission, which is a joint venture mission with SkyPerfect JSAT, is covering North America and the Pacific Ocean. Well, you have to make sure that you have enough real estate to fit all the hardware and especially the reflectors. So this has 4 deployable reflectors, and that covers the mobility beams over the Pacific Ocean as well as the fixed beams over the North American market.
T-minus 16 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. I want to say thank you to Jean-Luc for joining us this morning to talk a little bit more about the satellite.
Stage 2 lock load has started.
As we get the call out for the start of Stage 2 LOX loading and the big vent wrapping up. Things proceeding on track for that liftoff in just about 16 minutes from now. And for those who are members on YouTube here on our channel, you can see the full interview that we had with Jean-Luc. That is up on the channel right now in the members only section. Just one of the perks of membership here at Spaceflight. Now we do have those exclusive videos for you. And with about 3,900 of you watching live, want to thank you all for being with us tonight. Again, if membership is not something you're able to do at this point in time, we do appreciate all of you being here. If you could hit the like button, share the stream, that does greatly help us with our coverage and help this reach even more people. As we are just about 15 minutes from liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. T-minus 14 minutes, 34 seconds and counting. See our friends over at Lab Padre have entered the chat.
Galaxy 37 spacecraft is on internal power. Go for launch.
And we hear the call that the satellite is now on internal power and it is primed and ready for launch. All good signs as we are moving closer and closer to that T0, now just a little over 14 minutes from now. Of course, Lab Padre helps us bring you those fantastic views of Starbase, and we really appreciate working with the folks at Lab Padre. Hoping to keep all of the goings-on with SpaceX just at your fingertips. And want to go ahead and welcome Tim Scheidler to membership at the pad leader level. Thank you so much, Tim, for joining us. And Tim, like the rest of our members, now has access to the 4K stream of this launch tonight, as well as other member benefits like discounts at our merch shop, as well as member exclusive videos. So thank you to Tim for becoming a new member, and for all of our members and those who help support our coverage by sending in a super chat donation. Really appreciate those, as well as just being here with us tonight, giving us a like and sharing the stream, just being a good part of our community here in the chat. We've got about 4,100 of you watching tonight. We are now Just about 12.5 minutes from liftoff. Now less than 10 minutes left in the count. Taking a peek at the chat, want to thank Chrome Domable's channel for joining us in membership at the mission specialist level. Thank you so much for that. Things continue to proceed well with fueling of the Falcon 9 rocket. T-minus 7 minutes. SpaceX will begin the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines. About a minute after that, we'll hear the call out for first stage kerosene tank loading completing. T-minus 8 minutes, 12 seconds and counting. As we get close to some of the final milestones in this mission, let's go ahead and take a look at the milestones of this particular Falcon 9 first stage booster, about to make its 6th flight. Take a look back in time for booster 1077. It began, as some boosters do, by supporting a crewed mission, this being the Crew 5 long-duration mission to the International Space Station that lifted off on October 5th, 2022. This happened to be the first launch featuring a Russian cosmonaut for the commercial crew era of flights to the space station. Followed up on January 18th, 2023, with the launch of a GPS satellite, GPS-3 Flight 6. Next up was February 18, 2023, with the Inmarsat 6 Flight 2 mission. Launch number 4 was a batch of Starlink satellites, that being Group 5-10. That took flight on March 29th of this year. And last but not least, this booster supported another mission to the orbiting outpost.
Chilling in for flight.
Incurred the call out for engine chill beginning as we are T-minus 6 minutes 44 seconds and counting. The most recent flight for this booster was the launch of the Cargo Dragon for the CRS, or Commercial Resupply Services Mission 28. That was on June 5th of this year. So busy time for these first stage boosters. As I mentioned before, SpaceX is in the process of certifying them for up to 20 flights using their Starlink satellite missions. Right now it has 2 flight leaders that have hit that point, B1058 and B1060.
Stage 1, RP1 load complete.
And here the call out for RP1 loading complete on stage 1. Less than 6 minutes left in the count. Less than 5.5 minutes left in the count. For those curious where this is going after it lifts off in just over 5 minutes, let's take a step back through the trajectory. At the T0 of 1 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time, the Falcon 9 rocket will leap off the pad at Slick 40, Space Launch Complex 40 over at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. We'll fly in an easterly direction. And at MECO, or main engine cutoff, will be followed by stage separation. That first stage booster will land a little over 8 minutes
Pressing for Starlink retract.
after launch. We just heard the call out for the preparation for strongback retract. The transporter rector will lean back about 1.5 degrees from the Falcon 9 rocket. After launch and separation, that first stage booster will land on the drone ship just to read the instructions. The payload fairings will be recovered by the
blower has started.
recovery ship Bob. Both will be brought back to Port Canaveral, where they will be refurbished and prepared for another flight later on down the road. T-minus 4 minutes and counting. Our clock is in real time. The SpaceX time you see on your screen is just a little bit of delayed from what's happening here in real time, but you see those clamp arms that were opening just below the payload fairings as the strong back is about to tilt away from the Falcon 9 rocket. You see that starting right there. And here is the vantage point from our cameras. You see it leaning back just a little bit. And it will stay in that slight decline right up to the point of launch, and then it will move back much more expeditiously. So we are now just about 3 minutes to the liftoff of SpaceX's 52nd launch of the year.
Stage 1, locks load complete.
And we get the call for locks load complete as we are less than 3 minutes remaining in this count. If you've been enjoying the coverage so far, we appreciate if you could hit that like button, as we are just about a little over 2.5 minutes from liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. Appreciate the nearly 5,400 of you that are joining us in our live stream coverage. See that $2 super chat from Peppa. Yeehaw! Another rodeo down at the Rocket Ranch. Yes, indeed, Peppa. And Jesse with a $5 super chat as we approach T-minus 2 minutes and counting. Thank you for the trajectory info and the map. Of course, we always love to bring that up. Get a lot of questions about where this rocket is going and who might be able to see it. So we love including that in our live coverage, as we are now under 2 minutes from liftoff of what will be the 39th mission from Florida Space Coast.
Stage 2 LOX load complete.
And we hear the call out for the completion of Stage 2 LOX loading. Saw a quick question in the chat about what are those larger towers that are surrounding the Falcon 9 rocket that is part of the lightning protection system that SpaceX uses at the pad. Of course, being in Central Florida and that it is summer, we are no stranger to thunderstorms rolling through, and certainly we get our share of hurricanes and that lightning system, which other pads have differing versions of their own lightning protection systems.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Help keep the rocket safe through thunderstorms that roll through. And we hear the call out that Falcon 9 is in startup, as we are now just about 40 seconds away from liftoff of the Galaxy 37 Horizons 4 mission.
Go for launch.
Got the call out for go for launch. We are now 30 seconds away. Now 20 seconds out. I want to thank Babs for becoming a pad leader member, as we are now 10 seconds away. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine start. And liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket carrying the Galaxy 37 Horizons satellite for Intelsat. A gorgeous view of this mission now leaping from the pad. T plus 20 seconds and counting. And we're starting to feel the rumble here at the Spaceflight Now offices here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. T plus 45 seconds. In about 30 seconds, the Falcon 9 will go through the point of maximum dynamic pressure known as Max-Q. Great tracking images from Adam Bernstein out in the field for us, keeping an eye on this Falcon 9 as it continues to climb. Falcon 9 now supersonic as it approaches Max-Q. T plus 1 minute, 27 seconds into the mission. In less than a minute now, we'll see main engine cutoff, or MECO. That's when the 9 Merlin engines on the first stage will cut off. But for now, we're still seeing those engines burn in fantastic fashion as the mission is going nominally so far. Trajectory remains nominal as we are less than 20 seconds from MECO. Less than 10 seconds now. T plus 2 minutes, 33 seconds and counting. We have MECO. There you see on your screen. Right about now, we should have stage
MECO.
separation. And there
Stage
you see
separation confirmed.
SES-1. And you see there that from the SpaceX feed, stage
activation.
separation and that MVAC engine igniting for SES-1. The first of 2 burns for this mission. In less than 30 seconds will be the jettison of those 2 payload fairings. They'll be recovered by the recovery vessel Bob. And you see those grid fins on the first stage as it continues to make its path back to the drone ship out in the Atlantic Ocean. Just read the instructions. It's about 5 minutes away from landing on that drone ship.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And you see those fairings fall away and the Galaxy 37 satellite now exposed to space.
Acquisition signal, Bermuda.
T plus 4 minutes, 9 seconds. We still see that second stage Merlin vacuum engine burning from our tracking camera. Just an amazing change from earlier tonight when we had a lot of clouds hanging around, and right now we have none of those obstructing our tracking camera's view. Appreciate Adam for bringing us these live pictures right now. So we are T plus 4 minutes, 30 seconds into the mission. T plus 5 minutes, 4 seconds now. The Falcon 9 first stage has reached its highest altitude, now making its descent back down toward the drone ship. Just read the instructions. In just a little over a minute from now, T plus 6 minutes, 23 seconds, the first stage entry burn will begin. Lasts about 22 seconds, cutting off at T plus 6 minutes, 45 seconds. Helps to slow down Falcon 9 first stage. You can see here the telemetry track of both the first and second stages of the Falcon 9 rocket. And the onboard cameras from the Falcon 9's upper stage, giving us a view of that Merlin vacuum engine glowing brightly on the right-hand side of your screen, on the left-hand side of your screen. Dark to see, but that is the Falcon 9 first stage. That entry burn set to begin in just about 10 seconds from now.
Stage 1 entry burn startup. Stage 1 FTS is saved.
And the entry burn now underway. We can see still the pictures on our tracking camera here. Just an amazingly clear night in Florida from what was much cloudier. And we see the entry burn has ended in the live stream. SpaceX again on a little bit of a delay in their stream from our real-time tracking camera. Next milestone in just about a minute, T plus 8 minutes, 8 seconds. That second stage engine will cut off, SECO 1. Less than 20 seconds later, the first stage landing burn will begin. And you can see the speedometer on your screen on the left-hand side from the SpaceX feed. That Falcon 9 first stage speed is plummeting as it gets closer and closer to landing on the drone ship. Just read the instructions.
Terminal guidance.
Stage 1 transonic.
Stage 1 is transonic. Peeking into the chat here, looks like a lot of you here in Florida got some good views of this launch tonight, as well as that entry burn.
Stage 2 FTS is safe.
As we are approaching the start of the landing burn in just about 10 seconds from now.
Stage 1 landing burn.
And we hear the call out for the Stage 1 landing burn.
And back shutdown.
As the Merlin vacuum engine shuts down.
Nominal orbit insertion.
Drone ship now coming into sight. Just read the instructions.
Stage 1
Waiting
landing leg
for
deploy.
the Falcon 9 first stage. The landing legs have deployed. And we have a good touchdown.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
Expected loss to signal, Cape.
Landing confirmed on the comms and on your screen. You see it there sitting pretty on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. Another successful launch and landing for this Falcon 9 first stage, making its 6th trip there and back again. As you see the telemetry of the second stage as it continues onward. That second stage will remain in a coast until T plus 26 minutes, 33 seconds. When that Merlin vacuum engine on your screen will restart. For SES-2. See there's some good images of the Galaxy 37 satellite for Intelsat. Preparing for deployment, but not for a little bit longer. That coming at T plus 32 minutes, 31 seconds into the mission. T plus 11 minutes, 18 seconds, and counting up into the Galaxy 37 mission for Intelsat. Now that we are in the middle of the coast phase for Stage 2, want to talk a little bit about the destination for this mission and its desired orbit once all is said and done. So,
Expected loss of signal, Bermuda.
the Galaxy 37 Horizon 4 satellite ultimately will be going to geostationary Earth orbit. That is its ultimate spot, but how is it getting there? Of course, we just saw a good liftoff of this mission, leading to SECO 1. Second stage engine cutoff, which is now coasting in its parking orbit. In just a little bit, that will lead to the second burn, SES-2. That will lead to the transfer orbit, that is the injection to transfer orbit. As I mentioned, the satellite will ultimately go to geostationary Earth orbit. SpaceX has some options for how to make that happen. In the last mission we saw from the Space Coast, Falcon Heavy rocket launched the Jupiter 3 9-ton satellite using a geostationary transfer orbit. However, tonight SpaceX is doing something a little bit different. It is going with a super-synchronous transfer orbit, places the Galaxy 37 satellite above the geostationary altitude. Now, at that point, it will perform a series of maneuvers using its apogee thrusters to increase the height of the perigee to a geostationary altitude. Following that, it has 2 maneuvers that will be used to decrease the height of the apogee down to geo. And that process, all in all, takes about 3 weeks. At that point, the satellite will go through a series of on-orbit testing at the point of 148 degrees west. And then finally, the satellite will move to its final location at 127 degrees west, which is just west of Seattle. Intelsat tells us that it expects this satellite to be in service early in Q4. Right around October is when that's expected. T plus 18 minutes and counting. SpaceX is less than 10 minutes away from the start of that second burn on the Falcon 9 upper stage. And again, because SpaceX is using a minimum residual shutdown or MRS option tonight, the second stage will continue to burn until it senses it's nearly out of propellant. That will help get the satellite into that supersynchronous transfer orbit. Intelsat says that's also what will allow the satellite to have a lifespan of 17, 18 years, potentially even longer. T plus 20 minutes, 24 seconds and counting. You can see the Falcon 9 second stage passing over near the continent of Africa, just off the coast of Dakar, the capital of Senegal. As we get close to nearing the end of our live launch coverage, I want to thank one of our new members, SMG Outdoors, for joining at the pad leader level. Thank you so much for joining aboard with us at that level and helping to support our coverage of the space program. Really appreciate that. T plus 23 minutes and counting. We are now less than 10 minutes away from the Galaxy 37 Horizons 4 satellite from deploying, but before that happens, the second stage engine, I should say, that Merlin vacuum engine will restart SES-2 at T plus 26 minutes, 33 seconds, just about 3 minutes from now.
Acquisition of signal, Gabon.
T plus 26 minutes, 33 seconds. We should see the Merlin vacuum engine roaring to life any moment.
And back ignition.
And we got the call for ignition, and there we see SES-2 burn begin. Now just over 5 minutes from the deployment of the Galaxy 37 Horizons 4 satellite at T plus 32 minutes, 31 seconds.
And back shutdown.
And we hear the call out for the MVEC engine shutdown.
Nominal payload insertion orbit.
The call out for nominal payload insertion orbit. It's coming up on the deployment of that satellite in just about 4 minutes. T plus 29 minutes, 16 seconds and counting. Getting some great views from the Falcon 9 upper stage. See the satellite there on your screen. And a gorgeous view of our little blue marble down below. Second stage continues to travel over the continent of Africa, heading in a direction toward Madagascar. Satellite deployment coming up in just now about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. T plus 32 minutes, 31 seconds.
Acquisition signal. Artemis dock.
T plus 31 minutes, 22 seconds and counting. Satellite deployment now just a little over a minute away. Less than 10 seconds to satellite deployment. Should be seeing it here on your screen momentarily. And
Galaxy
there we go.
37 spacecraft separation confirmed.
And Intelsat Galaxy 37 Horizons 4 now on its way. And with the position that the Falcon 9 upper stage was at and where the sun is located, just a beautiful, crisp shot of the satellite slowly drifting away from the Falcon 9 upper stage of the rocket. Good ground signal.
Expected loss of signal, go bone.
Just before loss of signal expected to come up momentarily. For now, we're going to stay with these pictures of the Galaxy 37 satellite. And we're going to go ahead and wrap up our live coverage here as you see these live pictures of Pad 40 over Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Strong back, heading back into a vertical position. Part of SpaceX's system of rapid reuse for this launch pad, helping some of those steps move along just a little bit faster as they prepare for their next mission. We expect SpaceX's next launch to be a Starlink launch coming up on August 8th. Of course, we'll bring you that live coverage as it happens. I want to thank all of you that have joined us for our live launch coverage, as we still have about a little more than 1,200 of you that have stuck with us to the very end of everything. Really appreciate all of our members who have joined or that have become new members during the course of this live stream. For those that have contributed with super chats and given us a like, really appreciate all the contributions and the commentary that we've seen in the chat. Always wonderful to see our space community here chatting it up and talking about all the various aspects of this mission, others, what you're looking forward to coming up next. And again, what's coming up for us next here locally, we have that Starlink mission we anticipate on the 8th. It's not the only thing happening here at KSC on the 8th. In fact, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson and Pam Melroy will also be in town, joining the 4 astronauts of the Artemis II mission. They're going to be stopping by at KSC, NASA's Kennedy Space Center, on August 8th, talking about the training that they've been going through for the Artemis II mission, set to launch at the end of 2024 at the earliest. Also be getting a little bit of a peek at the Orion capsule, their ride to space. They'll be getting a look at that, as well as some of the other Orion spacecraft that are in the works for future Artemis missions. Lockheed Martin has a couple of those in the ONC building that are in various phases of completion for Artemis missions 2, 3, and 4. Lots happening here on the Space Coast, but for this early Thursday morning, August 3rd, that'll go ahead and wrap things up for us tonight. For Stephen Young, Adam Bernstein, I'm Will Robinson Smith, signing off for Spaceflight now, and we will see you next time.